Hello and welcome to a live Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. I'm your host, Keri, and it's good to see you guys. I hope you're having a great day. Today's episode is going to be an episode of gratitude. It's important to have gratitude when things that you've prayed for happen, and we've just seen the Israeli-Gaza peace deal, in part brokered by Trump or helped along by Trump, come to fruition. We've seen 20 hostages released, Israeli hostages who are still alive released, and we're going to be looking at some of the video of that. I've got a couple of things to show you guys today. I hope to keep it to about an hour. I did notice, before we start, I'll just say that YouTube is apparently deleting comments in the chat. Two of the mods said they've had comments deleted. I had a comment deleted, so I don't know what's going on, but it's not us. If you have a comment deleted, before you get your panties in a twist and say, oh, you guys are censoring me, just know we are also having comments deleted. So just so you know, that's happening. I don't know what that is. Okay. Welcome. I want to show you this clip from 4 days ago. Like a lot of us, when I heard talk of a peace deal with this 2-year war, I was just waiting to see what happened, because I don't know. You know, as much as I get called a Zionist shill and accused of talking about Israel all the time, I actually don't. You guys who watch the program know that. I don't have the expertise. I've never really offered any opinion on what's been happening other than war is hell. And also I don't like our money going to wars that are being wars for other countries. And that's true of Israel or any other country. So I've never really said much about it. And this will probably be the one episode that is sort of about it. Now that the conflict's over, I'm doing a gratitude episode. But so like a lot of you, you guys maybe were waiting, like I was waiting to see what happened, because I don't know. And I don't know if this was going to come to fruition. And this was 4 days ago, and they announced the peace deal, and they have released 20 of the hostages. So let's just take a look at this.
To a Fox News alert, President Trump just announced a deal between Israel and Hamas. Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin has been on this from the beginning, live from a very, very, very late Tel Aviv. Jennifer, good to see you.
Thank you, Laura. Well, incredible news here tonight that broke just within the last hour. First, we heard on Israeli television that there was a deal for the first phase of this peace plan, this agreement in Gaza to end the war and to release the hostages and to release Palestinian prisoners. Then we had the Trump Truth Social post, which really is what Israel was waiting for in order to make the formal announcement. And the Truth Social post said, "I'm very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed upon line as the first steps toward a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly." In essence, we also have heard from the foreign minister of Qatar, the prime minister, of Qatar, who made the similar announcement that the hostages and the prisoners will be released and that Israel will be withdrawing to an agreed upon line. Now, based on my reporting tonight, Laura, that agreed upon withdrawal line will be about 51% of Gaza. So it will not be out of the entire Gaza Strip, because in this first phase, which is expected to start on Saturday or Sunday in terms of the 20 live hostages being released, hopefully all together from the Gaza Strip, there is no word yet on the dead hostages, the 28 hostages who are deceased, that Hamas says that they have not been able to locate all of them because Israel is controlling right now 80% of the Gaza Strip. So that withdrawal will be taking place after the release as the hostages are released, so that they can then find the rest of the hostages. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wrote tonight in a post that with God's help, all of the hostages will be brought home in good time. So a sense that while this first phase, which is a very important phase in terms of hostages and prisoners and the withdrawal of the Israeli military and its immediate ceasefire, that very important phase has been negotiated with the help of Jared Kushner, as well as Steve Witkoff and the Qatari Prime Minister, the head of Turkish intelligence. We have a photograph showing the Major General Nitzan Alon, who is the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, main negotiator for hostages, shaking hands with the Prime Minister of Qatar, and also Steve Witkoff shaking hands with the head of Turkish intelligence. The smiles on their faces suggest that this deal for the first phase. Now, as we know, Laura, the devil is in the details, and the second phase, which is much more difficult in this overall plan to end the war in Gaza, involves the disarmament of Hamas. Where will those weapons go? Where will the leaders of Hamas go? Will they be evacuated from the Gaza Strip? Will they be allowed to stay there? And who will rule the Gaza Strip when this is over? Because Israel has long said that they will not allow Hamas to remain in power or to remain armed. So that second phase is going to be a lot trickier. But again, through the president's attention to this, his pressure on both the Israeli side as well as with the help of the Qataris and the Turks, the pressure on Hamas gave little wiggle room in terms of the release of these hostages. This will be disappointing, perhaps, if all of the deceased hostages are not released at the same time. We've been talking to families all week about how devastating it is to not have closure for those sons and daughters who have died and are being held by Hamas. There will be at least 1,700 Palestinian prisoners released. There have been negotiations at the last minute about the names who will be on that list, who will be included. 250 of those prisoners are likely to be having served lifetime prison sentences in Israel. So that is a very hard, bitter pill for the Israelis to swallow as well.
Yes. So Hamas released 20, as part of the deal, 20 Israeli hostages. And Israel is going to release 1,700 Palestinian prisoners, many of whom are terrorists. I've got a list of some of the people being released, just so you know, but this was part of the deal. And like she said, that's a bitter pill to swallow, but that was part of the negotiation. I want to show you just a little bit of Trump speaking as well. And this is a press conference where he is answering questions about what's going to happen in phase one. And yes, I saw your comment, Kevin. I don't trust Hamas. I'm just very grateful that they actually, for phase one, they actually released the 20 hostages. I'm just, praise God for that, right? So let's take a look at Trump. Now, of course, the leftists hate this. We'll get to that in a second, but they hate this. As much as they were in the streets and protesting, they said they were protesting to end the war, and now it looks like there's a peace deal in place. They're going through phase one. There's a second phase. Where's their gratitude? Where's their thank goodness this is over, this thing we said we wanted? Of course, I don't think that's what they ever wanted. I think they're upset that this has happened, but we'll get to that in a second. This is Trump.
President Trump is actually taking questions right now. Let's listen in.
Right now, as we speak, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. No, he was very happy with it. And I can tell you that I saw Israel dancing in the streets, but they were dancing in Qatar and Saudi Arabia and UAE and many, many countries. I saw Egypt. They were dancing. I'll be going to Israel. I'll be speaking at the Knesset, I think, early on. And then I'm also going to Egypt. They were terrific. But all of the countries were great. Indonesia was great. Jordan was great. They were all great. Everybody,
This is so
everybody
Trump.
wants this deal to happen.
What happens in Gaza?
You're great. He's great. They're all great. Everyone's great. It's huge. It's going to be huge. This is just, he just makes me laugh.
The day after the hostage release.
Day after what?
The day after the hostage release, what happens there then?
Well, hopefully you're going to have great success for, I call it everlasting success. I think you will too. I think you're going to have tremendous success, and Gaza is going to be rebuilt. And you have some very wealthy countries, as you know, over there. And it would take a small fraction of their wealth to do that. But and I think they want to do it. And we're also setting up, as you know, a board of peace. It's called the Board of Peace. I don't know if that's the final name, but the word peace is definitely in there. They have asked me if I chair it. We'll make sure things go well.
And how confident are you that the ceasefire will hold?
I think it'll hold, yeah. I think it'll hold. They're all tired of the fighting. Don't forget, you had October 7th, which was a horrible day, 1,200 people killed. But Hamas has lost 58,000 people. That's big retribution. That's big retribution. People understand that. So, no, I think they're all tired of fighting. And this really gives the whole Middle East, this is beyond Gaza. Gaza is very important, but this is beyond Gaza. This is peace in the Middle East. And it is a beautiful thing. You know, it's a term that you and I have been hearing since we were very young, right? And now we have a chance of really having that. And as you know, most of the countries have passed all these resolutions. Every country is there. Iran came in. I was very happy to see that. I was very honored that Iran came in. They said they support it. Russia came in. President Putin, he supports it fully, very fully. So I was happy to see even countries that weren't necessarily involved in the process, they all support it. I don't know of anybody that doesn't. And
let me just pause it here because this is an appropriate super chat from Randy. Thank you, Randy, for the super chat for $9.99. He says, the left's brains are exploding today, and most will refuse to give Trump credit. They're sick monsters, all of them. I was early to watch the Knesset speech. It's an amazing day. It is an amazing day. Thank God. And unfortunately, I think you're right. They don't care. They are sick monsters. They don't care about war. The ones who say they're anti-war and they're in the streets rioting and terrorizing people, like they are about violence. They don't want this to end. They have to have some cloak, some mask to wear to try and justify their evil actions. So they're pissed because they don't have this cloak anymore. And I think that's unfortunate. But thank you for the super chat. You know, Trump, it took Trump 8 months to get this deal brokered, and we sat through 2 years of Biden, almost, you know, how many months of Biden doing nothing. Why can't you give it up? If you're on the left and you're watching, like, why can't you give it up when you agree with something? Why can't you say, yay, this is good. This is what I wanted. You know, I don't get that. Like I can, conservatives in general, and I put myself in that group because you guys put me in that group. Others put me in the classical liberal group, whatever. I don't care what you think. You can call me whatever you want, but we're able to say, like, I agree with this, even when it's someone we typically don't agree with on anything. If they do a policy that we agree with, like, we'll say so. If it's someone who we voted for, like Trump, who does something we disagree with, like not releasing the Epstein files, like, we'll say so. I've said so loudly. But you guys are so hooked into this tribalism psyop. Like, you can't even celebrate when something good happens. You're just, I don't know. It's a darkness. And I feel sorry for you that you're trapped in that this makes you angry. That's sick. And I've heard from a lot of you today, and you're pretty angry. You're angry that there's a peace deal, which is crazy. I want to show you who's not angry. I want to show you who's celebrating. Now, there's been tons of footage of Palestinians celebrating in the streets at the news of the peace deal. I'm just going to show a clip of one. This is going to make me cry. Leftists, do you get this? Like, do you get this? These are Palestinians chanting Donald Trump because they're so happy that there's a peace deal now. You don't have any of this energy, you guys. So these people are happy that there's a ceasefire, and yet leftists don't seem to be, and a lot of the people who I consider to be woke right, who claim to be on the right, don't seem to be happy at all either. They seem to share in this sort of miserable resentment. We'll get to that in a second. I just want to talk about some of the hostages who've been released. So this is an article from the Times of Israel. All 20 remaining living hostages returned to Israel after over 2 years in Hamas captivity. These are some of the photos. I use some of these in the thumbnails because they're just so moving. Like the video footage of these guys returning home too. It's just so emotional. Like I don't know how you could see this and not be happy for these families. And yet I've had people in my comments, I don't know if they're woke left or woke right. It's hard to tell them apart sometimes, but they're just fuming, like furious and saying all kinds of horrible crap about the hostages. Like, why would you do this? What's in you that moves you to say this, to try and tear down people who've already been kidnapped, like innocent civilians who've been kidnapped, tortured, held in captivity for 2 years, starved? Like, what's wrong with you? It's repulsive to see that kind of response to this, because the natural gut reaction to this is joy. This is joy. I'm just going to read some of their names. Israel joined the families in celebration on Monday as Hamas released the 20 remaining living hostages under the Gaza ceasefire deal brokered by U.S. President Donald Trump, who came to Israel to mark the event. Hamas is yet to release the remains of 28 dead hostages, despite being required to do so under the peace deal. That would bring some closure to the national trauma that began when the terror group took 251 hostages back to Gaza after massacring some 1,200 people on October 7th, 2023. The first 7 living hostages. Now, you're going to have to bear with me because you guys know I get tongue-tired and I'm not going to pronounce these right. I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to say what they look like to me. These are the first 7 living hostages. Matan Engrest, Alan Ohel, Omiri Miran, Eitan Moore, Guy Gilboa Dalal, and twin brothers Gali and Ziv Berman were handed over to the Red Cross in Gaza City in the Strip's north at about 8 a.m. and transferred to Israeli forces inside Gaza about an hour later. The next 13, Elkanah Bobat, Avinatan Or, Yosef Haim Ohana, Eviatar David, I'm going to call him E. David because I want to show you something about him in a second, Ram Braslovsky, Segev Kalfan, Nimrod Cohen, Maxim Herkin, Eitan Horn, Matan Zengalker, Bar Cooperstein, and brothers David and Ariel Cuneo were handed over to the Red Cross in Khan Yunis in the Strip's south shortly before 11 a.m. and transferred to Israeli forces inside Gaza about an hour later. Just a moment of levity. I didn't know Nimrod was a real name. That's an ignorance on my part. I thought that was just a childish insult that people said to each other when we were kids. That's me being ignorant. Okay. All 20 returned pale and frail, but smiling and standing on their legs, with most of them held in horrific conditions in tunnels deep under Gaza, where many faced abuse, starvation, and received limited medical treatment. Each released hostage was taken to the border facility where they were reunited with their families in emotional scenes. They underwent initial medical checks to determine if any of them needed immediate urgent treatment. They were then flown on a military chopper to hospitals. These are some of the pictures. Footage released by the IDF showed hostages' families to be elated and tearful as they reunited with their loved ones, as large crowds gathered in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv's Hostages Square cheered from afar. And these are some of the pictures. These are the first 7 hostages who were released. It's all men, by the way. Tens of thousands of people gathered in Hostages Square to celebrate the release, waving Israeli flags and singing and dancing. Thousands more lined the streets as the hostages were transported. Let me just scroll down. You can see some of these photos of celebration. Look at this. Before their release, Hamas orchestrated video calls between some of the hostages and their families. The hostages could be seen in the videos accompanied by Hamas gunmen and wearing fake military uniforms that Hamas had forced the released hostages to wear in propaganda handover ceremonies during the previous Gaza ceasefire earlier this year. Israel demanded this time that Hamas not hold such ceremonies, such distasteful, dehumanizing, disgusting ceremonies. In exchange for the 20 hostages, Israel on Monday released nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners, including 250 terror convicts serving life sentences. It's just incredible, the difference, because the Free Palestine people have been saying this whole time they want an end to the conflict, that they want to see Palestinian prisoners released. I just want to show you some of these comparisons. This is from a user. I don't know this guy, but he compiled a list of some examples on X. These are the names. He says, Hamas will release Elkanah Bukbut, a 32-year-old party producer and musician, married and a father of a 4-year-old boy. Israel will release Be'er Badr, who in 2004 was responsible for a suicide terror attack which killed 11 Israelis. Do you see the difference yet? Hamas will release Bar Cooperstein, a 23-year-old security guard of the Nova Festival and the manager of his father's falafel restaurant. Israel will release Faris Ghanem, who was responsible for at least 5 terror attacks and at least 4 dead Israelis. This is the bargain they had to strike, right? Hamas will release Maxim Herkin, a 36-year-old who got to Israel from Ukraine with his family, including his 4-year-old daughter. Israel will release Jihad Rome, who kidnapped 17-year-old Yuri Goshin in Jerusalem, abused him, murdered him, and abused his corpse. These are the Palestinian prisoners who are being released. Hamas will release Segev Halfan, a 27-year-old from Dimona who suffers from PTSD and worked in his family's bakery. Israel will release Meir al-Hashlamon, who stabbed 3 people, killing one of them, Dalia Lemkes, who was a survivor of another terror attack 8 years prior to her murder. Hamas will release Eitan Moore, a 25-year-old who lived in Jerusalem and worked at a coffee shop. Israel will release Hussein Sharif Jaruda, who was 16 years old when stabbing 19-year-old Eden Arias to death on a bus. Hamas will release Alan Ahel, a 24-year-old talented pianist and musician. Israel will release Nabil Abu Haider, who murdered his own sister for suspecting she was an Israeli agent. Hamas will release Yosef Chaim Ohana, a 24-year-old bartender who helped others to escape from the party until he was kidnapped himself. Israel will release Ayad Abu al-Rub, the head of the Islamic Jihad in Jenin, who's personally responsible for terror attacks, among them a suicide terror attack in Hadera where 6 were murdered. This goes on and on. I'm not going to keep butchering these names and reading these all to you. You can go and look at some of the biographies of the Palestinian prisoners who are being released, over 250 of whom are terrorists. It's a big difference. It's a shocking difference. I want to show you something about one of these Israelis who was released, one of the hostages that Hamas held for 2 years. This is the one I said, I can't pronounce his first name, so I'm just going to call him E. David. I looked at this photo last night, which was a mistake because I was so emotionally affected by it. I had trouble sleeping when I read more about him. So I'm sorry. This is him on the left. He is a musician. He is a civilian. He was kidnapped at the music festival on October 7th. He's 24 years old. He was held underground for 2 years. They tortured him. They starved him. In August, just a couple months ago, Hamas released a video where his own family didn't even recognize him at first, because this is him on the right now. This is him from the August video. It's a still frame from the August video, and you can see he's holding a shovel there, because in the video, in his underground cell, they forced him to dig his own grave. What he thought was going to be his own grave. And that's why he's holding the shovel, because he thought he was digging his grave. And they put this video out, and his own family, he was so physically changed in those 2 years, his own family didn't recognize him at first. So this is one of the hostages who's now been released, praise God, and reunited with his family. I shared something about him, and I wanted to show you this one comment here. Let me take this down for a second until I single out the comments. I don't want to show all these other names on here. Okay, this woman. This is the typical, I don't know if this is woke left or woke right. Can you even tell them apart anymore? This is someone named Maram Mary who commented on this post about E. David being released, and, praise God, and said, "Stop your lies and propaganda. First, he's a soldier in the terrorist IDF." That's the Israeli army. One of the most inhumane and immoral armies in the world, committing savagery and unspeakable crimes against humanity to this day, as we speak to thousands of Palestinian hostages in the occupation torture camps. Second, he was being starved by the Zionist genocidal regime. No food, water, or electricity into Gaza. Remember, hundreds of Palestinians have died from starvation already. He's lucky they were able to keep him alive. Okay, so first of all, I looked into it and double checked, because I didn't read that he was an IDF soldier. He's not. He's a musician and a civilian. So that's a lie, what this person is saying. Second of all, even if he were an IDF soldier, they're not terrorists like this person says. That's like calling our soldiers terrorists. It's so weird to me that this person has infinite sympathy for actual terrorists, like for Hamas, infinite sympathy, and also has sympathy for the people who were affected by the war in Gaza, for the casualties of the war, which was started by Hamas. And I have sympathy for those casualties of the war too, but my sympathy for the casualties of the war doesn't somehow magically erase any sympathy for these hostages. Like, this person clearly hates the hostages. Like, why? So then I clicked on this person's profile, and it's what you would expect. It's just some crazy, look at the banner, ceasefire today, free. Okay, well, there is a ceasefire. They posted this in January. Well, there is one. Are you happy? No, they're not. They're going around finding strangers who are happy that the hostages have been released and that there's a ceasefire finally, and they're commenting hateful things about the hostages and lies about the hostages. It's crazy. Their banner says ceasefire today, free Palestine tomorrow, boycott Israel forever. There's a whole Palestine profile pic with this Palestinian flag. The whole profile is, oh my gosh, I didn't even see this. NATO Green. I used to represent NATO Green. He's a comedian. That's a weird little small world moment. Okay, so this person is a fan of my former client who's a leftist comedian. That's so funny. Maybe that's how they found my post. Maybe because we share a friend in common. Anyway, that's weird. But look, it's all just hashtag Zionism is terrorism, hashtag free Palestine, just like, okay, this United for Palestine, because I was trying to, like, who would be so miserable and hateful that they are not happy about a ceasefire and a peace deal, and then you go to their profile and you're like, oh, I see. Oh, I see. It's a completely crazy, morally ill person. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of these morally ill people now on the left, and some who claim to be on the right. Is NATO Green funny? Should we be looking out for stand-up? No. No. It's a long story about why I was working with him, but he is very woke and he is very sincere. I do think he sincerely believes. I'm not going to attack his character just because I don't think he's funny. But I think he sincerely believes in leftism. I know a lot of people who have good hearts who believe in that stuff. And I would say that he's one of them. So that was so random. I saw that and was like, wait, what? Okay. I've got a couple more links about E. David. We've got some footage of him and other hostages being reunited with their family. I want to show some of this. This is just amazing to see. I hope I don't get a copyright strike if I play this. I don't think so. Okay. These are pictures of him with his family. This is from that video. It's awful to watch. I watched part of it. This is from that video that Hamas released in August of him in his underground cell, where at one point they order him to pick up a shovel and start digging his grave, where he just looks so changed. Ugh. I can't. Okay, so we're going to move on to, I want to show you the stunning lack of response from the left. So this is a tweet about Amnesty International. There's a couple of other human rights orgs mentioned here too, but that's the one I'm very familiar with. I used to work for Amnesty International when I was a leftist college student. The so-called human rights guardians, Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, and Israel's, I don't know this one, BTSELEM, cannot muster even one tepid word of acknowledgement for the release of Israeli hostages. Not even one word of it, even acknowledging that this has happened. These are supposed to be human rights organizations. The absolute moral collapse of the so-called human rights industry is total. And you can see there are no results. They haven't even said anything. And I've known this for a while. Amnesty International, like a lot of organizations, like the ACLU, for example, has been totally cannibalized by woke leftism. It no longer serves its original purpose. it no longer is anything about human rights. Same thing with ACLU is not about civil liberties anymore. They're both about pushing a woke leftist ideology. That's it. That's what happens when the virus of woke ideology moves into your organization. So, of course, they don't care about this victory for human rights. Like, they're not going to say anything. I'm going to show you this one too. This is another tweet that includes a video that I thought did a great job of talking about how there's no celebration, there's no acknowledgement from the left. They're not happy about this thing happening that they said they wanted to happen. Why? Because they didn't really want it to happen, a lot of them. And also for the ones who did, they're just upset that it was Trump who delivered it. I think that's it. So here, let's watch this video.
2 years that we heard about and we have covered extensively, they were never about Gaza. They were about killing Jews. So think about it this way. If you don't believe me, which is fine. Where are those protesters now? Where are the pro-Palestinian types who flooded American streets for years? Because back then, they justified the marches and the chants by saying it was about the suffering in Gaza, the poor Palestinians. Well, there's a ceasefire in Gaza, so it should be a cause for celebration, right? Yeah. We are not seeing joyful gatherings in the streets. People aren't banging pots and pans celebrating that Hamas might give up and the Palestinians and Israelis will somehow live in freedom and peace together. No. Instead, the same protesters who were out for the past 2 years are now out in force calling for the murder of Jews. So let's just be clear here. It was never about the Palestinians. It was never about Gaza. It was never about justice. It was about the Jews. In the days after the attack of October 7th, 2 years ago, I told you, our viewers, remember these were the videos of what Hamas was doing. I told you, our viewers, that we were witnessing a moment that required extreme moral clarity. There were people in the streets in America celebrating this, and I took an awful lot of flack for saying what we needed to talk about was this, and that this was evil, and anybody who celebrated it or excused it needed to be called out. It is even more true today than it was back then. Even tonight, as Gazans return home and the discussion about rebuilding are taking shape, that anti-Jewish, that Jew hate, that anti-Semitism has spread throughout the United States and Europe, and it is growing like a cancer. They wrap themselves in the Palestinian flag. They didn't care a lick about the Palestinians.
Yep.
So they're going to be talking about their hatred for the Jewish people. So many of the people who protested for peace have absolutely zero interest in living peacefully with the more than 7 million Jews living in America or the millions living in the United Kingdom. So that's why they harass and attack innocent people who have nothing to do with the war in Gaza. 2 Israeli embassy staffers shot point blank in our nation's capital. The fire bombings in St. Louis and at the Pennsylvania governor's mansion. The attack in Colorado where a man literally lit Jewish people on fire at a vigil. These attacks didn't happen for any other reason than hatred. A hatred that started in Europe.
So I don't know who this guy is. Somebody said maybe I should start watching that News Nation. Yeah, me too, because I think he nailed it. And I don't see a lot of that kind of just blunt truth speaking. I agree with a lot of what he said there. Let me show you someone who, this is just a quick clip. It's not just leftists who seem to be angry and resentful about the ceasefire, about the peace deal. There are also many who I would argue have become very obsessed with Israel who claim to be on the right. Okay. I call them Israel first because that's all they ever talk about. Like they talk about Israel first before anything else, even if something doesn't have anything to do with Israel. They come into my comments, which my posts don't have anything to do with Israel usually, and then come in there and talk about Israel all the time. It's constant. They're just obsessed with it. They're Israel first. They talk about Israel more than they talk about America. It's like they're not interested in America. They wake up and the first thing on their mind is Israel. And it's those people who seem to be very upset by this. Now, here's a short clip. Every once in a while, I'll jump around on a Candace Owens stream and just see if she's gotten a little better. I'm sad to report she's gotten worse. And this is just a brief thing I saw. I think it's totally disgusting. Listen to the contempt and the sarcasm that she's speaking with here when she talks about the hostages being released and October 7th. It's with such scorn. It's with such contempt. It's like, to me, this is what this is just darkness. Like, this is darkness coming out of you, just like that commenter on my post.
Actually, let's first talk about the Israel and Hamas peace deal that they're trying to shove down our throats. Now, if you're reading the headlines, a peace agreement is what we're calling it, has been reached.
What? Why the sarcasm that they're trying to shove down our throats? What do you mean? Don't you want this? Didn't you want this? And the sarcasm, like a peace deal, you know.
Actually, let's first talk about the Israel and Hamas peace deal that they're trying to shove down our throats. Now, if you're reading the headlines, a peace agreement is what we're calling it, has been reached between Israel and Hamas. Oh my gosh, because they decided that there's going to be phases and Israel is going to partially withdraw its troops from Gaza and Hamas is going to release the remaining hostages. And this is, of course, after everything that happened on October 7th. Don't forget about October 7th. Actually,
don't forget about October 7th, she says. Like, sarcastically? Why would you say that? I just, there's too much of this right now from the left, but who cares what the left says, right? But from people who claim to be on the right, there's too much of it. This was just one quick example I saw yesterday that I found totally repulsive. And so I'm like, you know, if you're, it's no different. If you're animated by this kind of resentment and scorn and contemptuousness, then how is that any different from the same like resentment and scorn and contempt that the left has about this? It's coming from the same place. That's what I mean. It's coming from the same place. It's not coming from a good place. Yeah, why the snark? Thank you, Russ Williams. Why the snark, Candace? Trying to put air quotes on peace. It costs the U.S. nothing and people are going to stop dying. What's the problem? Like, what is the problem? It's because they don't, just like the left, like they don't want it to end. It's almost like, think about woke leftists and how the ones who dedicate their whole life and career, who get paid, who their whole identity is about quote unquote fighting racism, right? But we know it's not really. But they say, and some of them maybe believe, they're fighting racism. They don't want racism to end. Then their fight would end. Their cause, their identity, like the thing they're obsessed, like they don't want it to end. There's some people who honestly, I don't think they want woke to end. Then they would have to come up with some new thing to do. Like there's some people who are just like, this is her thing. This is her reason for waking up in the morning lately, aside from casting aspersions on all kinds of people related to the murder of Charlie Kirk. This is what she's waking up for. So it's like, you know, of course she's animated by resentment that it's ending. That's what I think is happening. I think it's when you let the darkness, when a person has willingly like let the darkness overcome the light in their soul. Maybe they started out with good intentions, but it's just come to this place of darkness. I don't know. That's how I make sense of it. So a couple of comments. Just John Bertram says every comment I make gets deleted. Yeah, I said at the beginning, I don't know what's happening. They've deleted one of mine. They've deleted a couple of comments from the mods. So if you're trying to comment and it keeps getting deleted, I don't know what's going on. We just noticed it right before we started. By the way, thank you, John Bertram, for the birthday wishes. I just saw it. John says, I was in Amnesty International 25 years ago. They've lost their own plot. Yes, they have. I was in it around, I guess, the same time as you. That's funny. Good Grief says, one of the founders of Amnesty International now speaks out against them. Well, that's great. That's good to hear. I didn't know that. Thank you for that. Okay. These other clips I have are just kind of more the same. I've got some of the Trump at the peace panel with everyone. I guess we could look at that. That was 2 hours ago. It's very long. We're not going to watch the whole thing. Let's end on this. Just some Trump is always going to be Trump. He's very Trumpian. Do you know what I mean? I love the way he talks. So back when I was like a raging leftist, I didn't know very much about him. I just knew what I was told to think about him. I never really watched his full speeches back then. A lot of the woke left, they don't watch the things that they have opinions about. They don't read the things they have opinions about. And in the years since leaving that cult, I have developed an appreciation for like how just funny he is. Sometimes he's not even trying to be funny half the time, and he's just I don't know, but they can't laugh at it though. They can't.
Has one of the most powerful armies actually in the world. It's much more powerful than he even lets known. If you look at some of the recent conflicts, he was at the top of them and he was winning them, and he did win them. And he doesn't want any credits. He doesn't want anything. He just wants to be left alone. He's a tough cookie, but he's been my friend. And every time I've ever needed him, he's been there for me. So I just want to thank President Erdogan, Turkey. And they don't have a problem with him because he is difficult. They call me. They said, would you do me a favor? Could you speak to Erdogan? And I do. And he never fails us. Right, General? He never.
I love that he compliments him and talks about what a great friend he is, and he's so loyal and he's always there for me. And then he goes, and he's really a tough cookie. And when they need help with him, he's really difficult. So they call me. It's like sitting right there. I love it. They call me, right? Don't they call me to get help with you?
He's amazing. So I just want to thank you for the friendship. It's great. Thank you very much. And then, of course, we have the host tonight, and I just want to thank you very much. There was a reason we chose Egypt, because you were very helpful, and very, very helpful. Everybody wanted to have this, but we really thought it was appropriate, and you are a great leader. You have very little crime.
So this is him like thanking all the heads of state who were there. That was the tough cookie was the Turkish president, and I think now is this the Egyptian? I think so.
We have problems that other countries don't have, and of course, nothing's perfect. But the job you do is amazing, and I want to thank you. Another one, we've been my friends right from the beginning. During the campaign against crooked Hillary Clinton, have you heard of her? We were both downstairs waiting to go up to meet this gentleman who has a place called Egypt, the oldest civilization. They say 6,000 years. China is 5,000 years, but you're actually number one, 6,000 years.
Just the way he talks. He manages to put crooked Hillary in there while he's complimenting and then he's like, they say Egypt's got 6,000 years. This place called Egypt. Like, he's just, how can you not find him? Like, I don't know. How could he not tickle your funny bone just a little? Come on. And crooked Hillary.
You believe it? But the oldest, they say civilization. But so I went up to meet him first.
They call it civilization. It's so funny.
We like each other so much that she waited for about an hour and a half. And I think your meeting lasted about 2 minutes with her. So I always remembered that. But that was our first meeting. We had great chemistry together. And he's a fantastic man and a fantastic general, by the way. But he's a great president, and I want to thank Egypt and all of your representatives for treating us all so well.
You guys in the chat are cracking me up. Russ Williams says, if they'd have any idea who she was, he'd probably have mentioned Rosie O'Donnell too, right? Like this is the heads of the state of everyone who brokered this huge Middle East peace deal. And he's there thanking everyone, and you're fantastic, and he's fantastic, and you're from a place they call it Egypt, the birth of civilization, and then he's like, and crooked Hillary. He probably would have thrown in Rosie O'Donnell, right? If they had known. He knows his audience. He's like, oh, they don't know who she is.
So we're really representative of a whole group of nations, and they're sitting behind us. And most of them, I can tell you, this guy's got so much money. They all have so much money. There's more money and power sitting behind us. I love that they're behind us. They've never been sitting behind anybody before. This is a very unique position for them, but they are seriously, they're among the most powerful countries in the world, the richest countries in the world, and there's never been really an assemblage like what we have today. I don't think I've never seen it anyway. And I want to thank everybody for being with us. I just solved the war for him. Azerbaijan. Oh, did that do a good job? Where did you come make it? Where's Darius? You guys are still getting along, right? We fought for 32 years. In about 1 hour, we settled, right? And they like each other now, too.
This is amazing. This is amazing. This history in the making. Yes. So SG says, thank you, Lord God, holy Jesus. Yes. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm gullible or as gullible as I used to be. Let's put it that way, or as naive as I used to be. I mean, you know, I think we should continue. If you're a person who prays, you need to continue praying for peace. Continue praying for these world leaders, especially the ones you don't like. The Bible tells us to love our enemies. Part of that is praying for them. If you think that someone is on a dark path, you should be praying that God helps bring them into the light in whatever way that happens. Like, pray that God brings them to the light, shows them truth, right? And so you should be praying for all these. We should all be praying for these world leaders. And I don't know. It's a historic day. I feel very grateful. I'm very happy. This is one of the things I'm very happy that Trump has accomplished. And, you know, it's a good day for the people who've returned home to their families. I don't have much more to say about it other than that. Yeah, amen. Thank you guys for being here. I just wanted to do a brief overview of what's going on because I couldn't stop watching. I just showed you a little bit of what I've been watching, all the videos of people returning home and stuff. So I thought it was good. Let's just have a celebration, a gratitude video, right? And let's pray that phase 2 happens. I'm not going to hold my breath, but let's pray, right? Have a good rest of your day. Wednesday, we will be back with a Christian panel at 6:00 Central. That's going to be myself, Brahmable, Michelle from Force of Light, Odin from OMB Reviews, and I believe we're going to have a very special guest, and that'll be on Wednesday at 6:00 Central. So I'll see you guys then. Have a nice day, and yeah, say a prayer of thanks. Okay, take care.